Hello. Welcome to the book Harlots. How are you guys? I'm Eliza Mann.
I'm AJ Norris.
I'm Sage Spelling.
All right, so we're all here this week to talk about the book of the week. Can you guys see that? Lover Reborn, the story of Autumn and Tor. And as you can see, this mofo is thick, like I like it.
One long book.
Long and thick.
Long, thick,
long.
Long and thick.
Not some dirty chicks. I love it. All right, so I'll go ahead and read the inside cover. Every time it's my turn, I forget to read the inside cover. And AJ will be like, on her turn, like, and this is the inside cover. And I'm like, all right, so ever since the death of his Shellen, Torment has been unrecognizable from the vampire leader he once was. Physically emaciated and heartbroken beyond despair, he has been brought back to the Brotherhood by a self-serving fallen angel. Lassiter. That's not in there. I just want to say his name. All right. Now fighting once again with ruthless vengeance, he is unprepared to face a new kind of tragedy. When Tor begins to see his beloved in his dreams, trapped in a cold, isolated netherworld far from the peace and tranquility of the Fade, he turns to the angel in the hopes of saving the one he lost. But because Lassiter tells him he must learn to love another to free his former mate, Tor knows they are all doomed. Except then, a female with a shadowed history begins to get through to him. Against the backdrop of the raging war with the Lessers, and with a new clan of vampires vying for the Blind King's throne, Tor struggles between the buried past and a very hot, passion-filled future. But can his heart let go and set all of them free? That's the question. All right, so Tor was a motherfucker in this book. I don't think I thought he was gonna get past it for a long time. So was he being extra, or what was it? I feel like kind of he was being a little extra in his deliberation over letting Wells go. What do you guys think? Somebody.
He was just, I don't know. I
don't know.
That, he was extra. I just think he was extra. He was annoying, and he was rude. And it's like, but he has no excuse. I mean, I'm sorry, grief or not, that's no excuse on how to treat people.
How about you, Sage?
He was just an asshole. Like, you can grieve, and have that. I'm not taking that away from him. She was the love of his life. We understand the bond between the mates. And I can see why he wanted to die. He wanted to join them. He wanted all these things. And then when he realized if he doesn't let her go, she would not be able to enter the Fade. And, he was like, all right, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
I can't hear anything you're saying. Is it like that for you?
Yeah, I got a little weirdness going.
I'm gonna get this done the right way. So it's just like everything.
We can hardly hear what you're saying for some reason. It was so awesome for you to be going like in slow-mo. It was like, it took me right back to the 80s when
Yeah, I love
what was
that.
his name? The $6 Million Man. It was like, dun, 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 dun. It was amazing. I think that was the Jetsons melody. I don't think that was actually the $6 Million.
The only thing you heard out of that entire thing was Autumn.
Yes.
Well, basically, he was a dick.
Let's try again.
Basically, I'm not gonna go through that again.
Okay.
He was a dick. And,
yeah.
And he should have treated Autumn better.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it was because he was in denial. of how he
Yeah.
was starting to feel. And then a lot of times when you are in denial about something, you're going to be very defensive as well. And I think that had to do with it as well. I just didn't like it really made me mad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, in previous time, now that I'm looking at it from an analytical perspective of the characters, I'm thinking that he had a definite deficiency. So anytime you're malnourished in the way that he was, you're gonna have like some questionable, you know, behavior. Like I get like super angry when I haven't had my sandwich on time. So so do y'all think, like, can we give him a pass for that, or is that sufficient?
Up until he was but see, he wasn't just a jerk because he was hungry. Even after he was fed, even after she had been sharing his bed and they were sharing blood for quite some time, he was still leaving that wall between them.
Yeah.
And not just leaving the wall, but being really abrasive in the things that he would say and the things that he would do. Like, she would creep out because she felt uncomfortable. Even his thought process was like, you know, I never had a conversation with her. Either we were messing around or we were asleep. And it just, he wasn't giving her anything. And I mean, that's her fault as well too, right? So there was some things that she allowed, and I believe she had her own reasons and her own sense of doing the things that she did, but he was taking advantage of her of her letting everything go, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see that. I think Autumn has some opportunities to, you know, advocate and have her own agencies, just like we've seen other females do in the house. You know, even in this book, we can see where people are like, I'm just not gonna fucking stand for this. I don't appreciate the way you're treating me, you know. And I don't believe that Autumn had the strength, you know, to do that. Or maybe she thought, you know, as we see throughout the book, maybe she thought she just didn't deserve it. So why did she take that shit?
Yeah, I don't think that she, you know, she was so strong with Hex, and like, you know, their first like meeting, we get to see when they really talk, you know, as like mother and daughter or whatever, and she's just like, no, you know, Hex was like, no, you don't want anything to do with me, you really don't, because you know, and then she's like, no, I'm not taking that shit from you.
Yeah.
Why was she able to stand up to her daughter, who she was afraid of, who reminded her of who, you know, the male that had hurt her, yet she can't say two shits and say boo to Tor, you know? And so I feel like, no, she let it happen because you know, she wanted to punish herself. She was in her, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I think when she first saw Hex, she was like, you know, all over the place. Like, Hex was reading her grid. She was like super fearful. But when she met at the pool, I believe Hex was like, oh, she's like a totally different person. And I think kind of because she was learning to stand on her own, and she had been through so much bullshit. Like, you know, for real, you got to say something. And it meant a lot to her to repair that relationship. What do you think, Sage?
I agree with her wanting to repair that relationship with Hex, because that was what she ultimately came back for. And Tor was the icing on the cake, right?
Yeah.
But
with a bunch of jobs.
Right. So she had how old is she? Like 300? She's about 300 years old, right?
Well,
so she had like 300 years old.
So she's older than that. She's at least 25 years older than Hex. So 25 years.
No, I'm talking about Hex herself, right? So Hex is like, so since she had Hex, so since she went to the sanctuary and in between, she had 300 years to think about her decisions, 300 years to come to terms of how she dealt with her daughter and all of that.
Yeah.
So I can see her coming back saying, no, you're going to give me the chance, because at this point, that's what her thought process is. I came here to fix this relationship between us, you know? So that's why I think with her, she was stronger. I think, you know, a lot of times women, we usually allow shit, like when we feel like there's something wrong with us, right? she was, because of her limp. Sometimes you like women, we accept, we
Bullshit.
do. And I for one have noticed, I've done that with myself, where sometimes I've allowed certain things to happen because we should never do that. I'm not saying we should, but I'm saying that I have at least. It would be
Right.
my own personal, like how I felt about myself at the time. So that you allowed that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what Autumn was doing. She was punishing herself, and she also felt like she owed him, right? Because everything he did for her and him and Darius, she took, she ended up killing herself anyway. She felt that she owed him something. So I think it's a combination of all of that, all those emotions for her. That's why she allowed it. I'm not excusing it because she should have been stronger, but that's what she was coming from. And I like that later on she became stronger.
She totally did. But do you think that while she was in her soft spot, and when she was like, on that spiral, on that roller coaster of I don't deserve, I don't need, did Tor take advantage of that? Because he kind of like benefited, like he got all the perks of being mated. And at the time he thought he was saving his challenge, so he got like all of this out of this, and he kind of wasn't giving her a whole lot. So did he take advantage, or was he that oblivious? Bless his heart.
I feel like he took advantage of it. I don't necessarily think that he realized he was doing it until like at the end, he's like, oh, but I don't know. I just don't feel like he was acting like a male of worth, personally.
Yeah, I think he could have done some different things. What you got, Sage?
Well, he did. I mean, he recognized how she felt about him because when he came for the meeting, well, he was like, I know you're in love with me. So he knew where she was coming from. He knew her heart. He just basically ignored, and he just basically was like, I'm going to do what I need to do to get my true love and my son to the fade, and just, I don't really give a fuck what happens to anybody else. And
yeah.
It was harsh. It was really harsh.
So like on that note, he's using her he thinks, well, if I get with her, then I'm gonna be able to release my shell. So I mean, he was using her too. I mean, think about it.
Totally.
He's conscious of that.
I think he had some awareness around it.
Yeah.
I felt a way, and I was like, oh, you know what? He's malnourished. He's hangry. And I think I felt that way all the way up until he told John, I'll never let someone come in the way of what me and Wellesley had. There'll never be another woman like that for me. All the while, he kind of like, oh, well, come on, girl. We hooked up, and, this is enough. I just, at that point in time, I knew that his actions were kind of selfish. It's like, I'm not going to ever let go of my Shelley. I'm never going to let her go. So that was like that point of like no return for me. I'm like, shit, Tori, you just playing everybody right now. You playing last year, who's giving up his time. You playing poor Autumn, no one, and what's her other name, Rosalinda. Like, this poor girl, she's caught fucking hell, and you like still playing her. So I think I gave him a pass all the way up until that point. What was your breaking point?
Up until he came back for the meeting, right? All of that was fine, but when he came back for the meeting, and he, I understood why he didn't want to service her. Totally understood that. Like, I'm not doing that shit again. That's all I need is another Shellin or another woman, a female, to get pregnant and me go through that shit again. I'm not doing it. So I get where he came from with that. But it was when he woke up in the morning. Well, when they woke up, when it was all over, and then he comes in that room and he is so vicious with her.
Like
at
a fucking savage.
You know she was in love with you. You know that she is sacrificing so much to be with you and to help you, right? And you know she didn't intentionally call you. You know that she told Jane not to call you. So all of that when he said those horrible things to her, that was when I was like, okay, that's enough.
He's talking about how she feels and all that shit. That's pissing me off. So but I love how Lassiter, like, he gets out of the room and Lassiter just cold cocks him.
It was a good hit. It was a good, clean slap around. I love Lassiter anyway, so he could just, he could do whatever, and I'd be like, all right, Lassiter, I see you're I completely understand where you're coming from, but he earned it. He totally earned that pop in the mouth. And in a lot of ways, I think that was the point for him when he was like, fuck, I am kind of fucked. I think he needed it.
Yeah. What is going on with Sage's internet?
Sage.
Why? I can hear you guys just fine.
I know, but your video is just frozen. So.
Yeah. You got resting.
I'm sorry, guys.
Like, I'm a whoop toward
even on the Wi-Fi.
I thought that was your tour look. It's okay. It's not a weird angle or anything. It'll pop back in a minute.
Well, as long as it's not a weird angle, we're good.
No, girl, you look good. You look like I wish Tor motherfucking would. So.
Now you're smiling.
And now you're smiling.
Okay, well, I'm smiling now, so I'm hoping you can still see me.
Oh my gosh. When that happens to me, I'm always in like this death face. Like they're like, oh my God, is she okay? So you got like a really good freeze frame face. So
is it still freeze frame?
Yeah, it is.
Still freeze frame?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
It's so weird.
Are you on your phone or now you just went off? Your video's gone.
I think she went to pop it into Wi-Fi.
Wow.
I can't see you now, love.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
There's your face. Okay, wait.
You see me?
Yes, I can see you. You're frozen, but I can see you. It's all right. We'll keep going. You look lovely. It's a cute face. So, all right. So, where was I? All right. So, Autumn. So we know she was on this like spiral thing, which is kind of janky, but she didn't even feel like she deserved a room in the main house. Like, what was that about?
I mean, I think it's because she felt like she was ruined because of what happened to her, because of how the Glimera was always, because she's from aristocracy, you know the word I'm trying to say.
Aristocracy. You got it. I knew what you meant, girl.
So, like, there's that ingrained, like, you're ruined, so you don't deserve anything.
Right.
I killed myself. I treated the servants when I was alive like shit. Now my penance is I don't even deserve a soft bed or a picture on the wall or anything. I'm just a piece of shit. So this is my lot. I want to serve how I can. I want to clean and work my fingers to the bone because that's what I deserve.
Mm-hmm. Did she sing?
Too, so.
Yeah, and Sage, I'm gonna ask you the same question, but did it seem like she was kind of like isolated again, like we've seen that once before with the other Shellens? Did you feel that isolation thing from the other Shellens? Because I kind of felt it.
I did. Well, not even, I mean, there was no, even with Pain, like she came here to serve Pain, but she didn't have anything to do with Pain at all. Like, we never saw her with Pain. We never saw her
I think Pain was like, none of that.
Yeah, in fact,
but I think the difference between her and Cormia was that she always hid herself under the hood. So she kind of was like, no, I'm not going to let you guys see me. I'm not going to have this interaction. That was the difference. That's why I didn't really perceive it that way, really. Because with Cormia, they would she was hanging out. She was fine. But you could tell that she was just bundling up and hiding herself. Like, she didn't give anyone a chance to, approach her. Because, you saw that the one scene where her hair was down, her hood was down, and Tora had a shirt on, and everybody's like, whoa, what's happening?
Well, they look like they just finished boning. Like, they came here to dinner looking like, I'm all a mess.
Right.
That was one of the best scenes ever. I cracked up. But, I get that. So yeah, I think the reason that she did it was that whole sulfur thing that she was on. She did that a lot, and I was like, girl, you're gonna have to get over it a little bit. And I think the first time I saw her trying to break free of that was when she, you know, met up with Hex at the pool, where she showed such, you know, independence and, you know, I know what I want. I know. And how cool was it when Hex took her out on her Ducati? I thought that was the best. I adored it.
What?
So yeah, so you know, that was right around the time when or right before, maybe a couple hundred pages before Tor realized that he actually did have to kind of give this whole thing up. You know, but before we jump into that, I was going to ask about JM and John Matthew in the ring. But before we get into that, do you guys, like, overall, do you think Lassiter helped or harmed the situation? I know what I think, but I want to hear what you guys think.
I don't think he harmed the situation. I think he wanted, he just didn't know what to do for Tor. And he, you know, what makes you get over, you know, a lost love quicker, a new love, you know? You know that even if you just break up with somebody and it's like, what makes you feel better is having a new love. It just always does, because love makes the world go round. I don't know. I just think Lassiter's aware of that. I mean, he knows that. So, and it was basically just to convince him, yes, you can love again. So yeah, I don't think it was wrong for him to push Autumn on him, you know, because that's, you know, he needed to see that he could live without Wellesley.
Yeah. How about you, Sage?
So I have my own theory about Autumn and Tor. So I truly believe because when they first met, like, she talks about when she would watch him sleep and she would memorize his face. I think that she truly liked him, and if it wasn't for her circumstances, they might, and he really liked her too, because we saw that in the memories. I think that they might have actually been mated before he would have gotten with Wellesley, had she not, you know, because he would have taken care of a child with her. I can see him doing all of that. Yeah. And so I think when they say, oh, everything came around full circle, it really did, in my opinion, because I really thought that they were truly meant to be together. Had she not
missed opportunity.
Yes.
Okay.
And so,
you know,
that's how I read that.
You kind of almost wonder, like, hey, if you were to write an alternate version of events, would you have had her not kill herself? How different would Hex's life be? How different would, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you'd still
Hex's life would be more like, Hex's life would have been more like Rev without the horrible stepfather that he, you know what I'm saying? Like she would have had that lifestyle where she was in the aristocracy. You know what I mean?
Well, they would have protected her because they would know she was sympath, so they would have protected her. So
I'm gonna say,
who would have known though?
Well, I
think Tor would have.
And she would have had
Tor's a brother. He's not gonna.
Then
Tor, you're slowing down again, babe. But Tor is so by the fucking book. No way would he have not told. He would have told that she was part sympath. Oh, for sure. And it wasn't just him that knew. It was Darius too, who was, you know, kind of like second in command, hand of the king. Mm-hmm. So I think you know, it would have been known that she was part sympath. So I think the things that happened kind of needed to happen in that order. Right. But I do totally agree with you that had things not been that way and he would have just met her, like, you know, and fallen for her in the Glamera since he was a male of worth, I think they would have definitely been something to one another, right? That is a very good observation. Oh, I love it. Sage, I'm sorry. I had. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm just listening to you guys. I don't know when you can
I knew you
or
were
when you can't. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Oh,
you guys see me now, or am I still?
No, you're really, really good. So now I want to hear your point of view on that.
Okay, wait. I'm going back to the point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, your point of view. We couldn't hear you when you were talking about whether or not they would have been together.
Yeah, I think that they would have been, because I think that would have been mated to be together. If had Wellesley not, had she not killed herself, he probably wouldn't have bonded with Wellesley. I think that they originally were meant to be together.
Autumn.
Or
yeah,
Autumn, I mean.
Autumn. You know, she had 3 names. That girl had a lot of names. Oh, good heavens! So, we did miss an important point. I felt like Autumn was all up in Tor's business in the sanctuary, in the bowl, like all through it. And I know, you know, she was used to using that bowl so that she could watch Zexania, you know, grow up. But she kind of used it to her advantage. Was that nosy?
You know, I think she wanted to understand where he was at. Maybe a little bit, but I don't disagree. But I think.
I mean, look, I totally agree it was nosy, but I totally agree that's totally a female thing to do. Like, it's like,
it is.
I mean, like, if we had the chance to check on guys and look in the bowls to see what happened, we would totally do it. It would be like checking Facebook and Snapchat and checking his Instagram.
Oh my God. I don't even know what you're talking about. I would never cyber stalk a dude. What? Why would I do that? Okay,
I think she wanted to understand where he was at, and I think that, you know, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was nosy, but she was. But then, you know, when he found her up there, she told him exactly what she was doing. So I thought that was, you know, she wasn't hiding it from him. She wasn't being sneaky about it. She's just like, oh, you're here. And so they started talking about it. And he's like, what did you find? And she was like, well, I might as well just tell. You know what I mean? She didn't hide it. She was upfront with him about it. So.
And
she owned up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did own up to it. And at that point, she kind of also was like, oh, you know, like telling him things that he had not considered before. So it's almost like she needed to, you know, see those things and relate it to him, because it was at a time when he needed to hear it. You know what I mean? Because bless his heart, he was still out there in the wilderness and he was not together. So I know it was nosy. It was not necessarily an invasion of privacy, but it was a little bit nosy. But in the end, it justified the means. And that's what happens when we cyber stalk a dude, right? So I'm sorry for like all these messages. Yeah, so I forgive her for it. All right, so back to you know, Tor and the brothers showing up to give him all these things at the door, and everything that was given to them was kind of personal. The handprints from Nala and the signet ring from the king, and you know, but when it got to
black diamond ring from the king and stuff.
Okay, and so the things were really, really personal. And Darius, Lord have mercy, John gave him Darius's ring. So that felt a little bit off because everybody had given something that belonged to them and was personal to them. But why do you think he did that? Why do you think John gave him that? He said, you know, this is what Darius would have wanted. But do you guys feel like there was a little something more to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think subconsciously he does things and he's just not aware of doing them. You know, because sometimes he says things or he has a memory or he has this thought, you know. It's like when you go back to when he transitioned and, you know, he, you know, Beth and Wrath were leaving him alone in the room with Layla, and he was just like, she's like, I'm proud of you. And he's like, I'm proud of you. And he's like, where the hell did that come from? Why did I have this thought? You know, it's that thing. And I just think it's like, instead of like all the other brothers gave him something that was representative of them as a couple, you know, or the Chosen did, you know, had embroidered that belt, you know, with the gold embroidery. And that was like, because he's the Crowley, so it's like his entire family is all of them, you know. So that was representative of him and what he does in his role and all the females that he, you know, he's like the godfather of, you know, and the handprint of Nala. Well, that is representative of all 3 of them. Because Dee and Bella made Nala, so that made a lot of sense, and then but then he doesn't, then John doesn't give him anything that represents him and Hex as a couple, and so I mean, and they were back together at that point, so
yeah, they were.
It's weird. It's like it's weird to me. I don't know.
I didn't perceive it that way. I didn't perceive it that way. For me, I mean, I see that Tor was his
We can't hear anything. Sorry.
father, right? Really, only by supposedly biological. Still can't hear me? No.
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was saying that Tor is his stepfather, the only stepfather that he's ever known, and his biological father is Tor's best friend and his mentor. And I think it was just something that he thought that Tor would appreciate, because out of everyone, because he didn't really know Wellesley, but Darius did, and I think that it was just that connection, I think.
So when I was thinking about it, I thought, wow, that is a little off. But in my mind, he was like, I'm not a brother. And the only brother that's not here that I knew of is Darius. So hear from your brother that has fallen, here's this ring. And I think I kind of saw it that way. So I didn't feel weird about it as much. It was, something that you would have to like read into the lines for. And I think that's where John was kind of coming from, because he did mention, well, Darius will want him to have it. So that's kind of how I made that connection. He's not a brother yet.
I understand that point you're making. And, to go back to that, it's like, well, but why? Why does he feel like he needs to represent his best friend? I mean, this is
because he's his son.
You know him is my point, and it doesn't. It's still not representative of him. Well, it is. He just doesn't know it is. So
it is, but I don't.
But he doesn't know that. So
I believe the ceremony is for the brothers to give him something, and the brother that wasn't there was Darius. So I know that he is actually Darius, but he is not, in fact, physically a brother. So,
right, because did Quinn or Blake give him anything?
No, because they're not.
I think so, right?
They're not brothers.
They're not brothers, right? So I think that your point makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what I kind of put together, and I'm like, that is a little off, but I think it's because the brothers are the ones who give. And that's kind of where they were coming from.
Why would it just be brothers when it's a faith?
The ceremony. Well, they're really in the ceremony. I mean, everything they do is ceremony.
But there's other faith ceremonies. It's not only the brothers that conduct faith ceremonies. So that's what I don't you know what I'm saying? I know I get your point. I'm just.
Yeah, I guess like once we see future faith ceremonies, we could do a comparison.
God, I don't want to see any more spade ceremonies. Lord, have mercy. Don't even put that in the universe.
But I think that's when we'll understand. We'll understand more.
Yeah, we should totally write that down.
We'll understand more once we see more, because that's like really the only thing we always hear about faith ceremonies, but we always hear about.
Yeah, I think.
Okay,
so we won't go into the next faith ceremony. I'm not going into. So yeah, so let's just. I can't even. All right, so let's see. So they went through the faith ceremony, and that was something. But right before that, Tor had gone to see Autumn and offered an apology, which. Hex, like being a really good daughter, I loved it. She was like, and by the way, old boy coming over here. So she was I was like, I love Hex. She like, you ain't gonna sneak up on my mama. What you thinking? So he came over and he offered an apology. It was a meaningful apology. But we just talked about how I gave him a pass up front because he was half starved to death. And then, you know, at some point, you know, we all kind of were like, okay, Tora, you fucking enough. Was it enough for all of that he put her through? Was the apology like significant enough? Because was that grand enough of a gesture for her to forgive him? Because I kind of felt like, Tori, you should follow your sword a little bit. What you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't have a lot of pomp and circumstance for sure, you know, and so, yeah, I mean, definitely he could have put a little more cowbell into it, I guess, but I just felt like, oh yeah, you guys are frozen now. Is it me? No. You guys are frozen. You can't hear me, can you?
And we're back. The internet is off the chain tonight. So the question was, do you think Tora's apology to Autumn was enough? AJ, we'll start with you.
No, because I don't think that there was enough, like I was saying before, I just don't think there was no pomp and circumstance. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was just like, I'm going to come over, I'm going to apologize, tell you I love you. But there was no, like, you know, he should have been on his fucking knees, groveling, because of how much of a bastard he was. He was acting like, well, I won't go into what he's acting like, but.
I get it. I know what you mean. It's like I'm psychic right now. I can totally read your thoughts. Yeah. How about you, Sage? What do you think?
I agree. No grand gesture. He just came over and apologized. You know, and I mean, again, we understand what he was going through. We understand that he was grieving and it was hard and all of that. But in order to make her feel special, to make her feel like, you know, because part of romance is her, you know, we read romance because we want him to, we want that grand gesture. We want to feel like we're the one and only, right? Or the characters are the one and only. And we didn't get that with the two of them. He didn't even feel like he cared until after she came back, you know, or until she was gone, you know, but right. He really didn't feel anything. And there was no grand gesture on his part whatsoever. Right. And that was a sorry ass excuse for apology. You need more. We need more. I don't know if she needs it, but we sure as hell do.
Well, I think that the grand gesture came before, like him willing to, you know, empty out the house, sell the house, you know, and commit to this thing that he'd been talking about for the entire book, and trying to get to. I feel like that was the grand gesture. It was just that she didn't hear from him. And I kind of wanted him to be like, listen, I gave everything away and I'm starting fresh with you. In a big way though. Like I'll lay down in front of a car for you.
Right.
Like I would
you
take
just
a
wanted
bullet
more
for you. Yeah.
More of what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get it. He's not, Tori's kind of, you know, real straight-laced, and we know that about him, but I just wanted a little bit more. I do appreciate when they were at the mating ceremony and all of the things that, you know, happened there. And while we're on that, since everybody has given their take, what the fuck? That last final, like, black moment, like, did we need a bonus black moment at that point in time when we almost lost Autumn too? What did you guys think of that?
It was necessary because they like all three of them were kind of in an in-between. Well, you know, Wellesley was in an in-between. Tor, in a sense, was. Lassiter, we know, was. And because Lassiter needed to make a grand gesture. He needed to prove to the maker that he was worthy of forgiveness or whatever is going on with his situation. And obviously Autumn wasn't in between because she was dead. I mean, so clearly she was, you know, in between, because she wasn't a ghost like Jane. She wasn't, you know, I mean, she was alive but dead, you know. Kind of a weird thing. I mean, obviously the Sky Virgin granted that to her for whatever reason, or the maker did or whatever, but
Right. I think that was the thing, because like I felt like Lassiter had been like giving blood, sweat, and tears, but he did kind of lay on his ass a little bit around, like, okay, dude, you still ain't doing enough, But I totally get why he can't do the work for free will. So I did appreciate like everything that he gave at the end and turning, whatever he traded off to the maker, the creator, for her to come back to Tor after all that work. I was nervous as shit. What about you, Sage?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again? Because that little interruption with the family like threw me completely off.
Our coworkers ain't no good. You know what I'm saying? Like
I can't. I'm sorry. I don't know what the question was anymore.
It's so fine. My son walked through here like 4 times. Bless his heart. He's home to see me.
I'm like, get out. I'm recording, get out. I'm like doing this wave thing. And he's like, but I just want you to check and see. I'm like, good phone.
I will do it later. So the question was, you are very talented with it, though. I appreciate it, because I'm always like, let me just get closer to the camera so they can see like this 6'3" boy. He's like a brother. He's 6'3". So anyway, the question was, damn it, what was the question? The question was that last black moment bit where Lester had to go trade his soul away or give away whatever he was promised to get Autumn back. Did you feel like, damn it, like it was like 5 seconds left in the book and it scared the shit out of me? So how did you feel about it?
Well, first, I mean, that was our grand gesture right there. It was Lassiter that gave it to us, right? And then I was like, what the heck?
I know.
What's happening?
Like, wait a minute.
Wait. Now he's losing both? What was the point of it?
But, I know. My heart. In my heart, like, boo-boo. I'm like, no. So, yeah.
I know. But, it was a lot to take. Like, what is happening? But, I'm curious to see how this revolved. Lassiter getting the test by the maker, which was, this is the first time we actually heard really had anything to hear about from the maker, right? Yeah. So it's like it's like the first time, really. So I mean, it was like a really good scene, because so much happened and it scares the crap out of us, but it also has a lot of questions to it too.
Yeah, it does. I can't wait to see more from that storyline. So yeah. So all right. So conversely, from moving on from Tor and Autumn, there was a lot of secondary stuff happening in this book, and I was kind of like, wow. I know it's a long book, but it kind of had to be, because there's like 4 or 5 other people who have lots of shit going on. So first, though, before we get into the couples and the people who, like each other a lot, let's talk about Zephyr. Is that a porn star? Like, what? What the fuck? Oh, he's hot. Okay.
I was happy that we were able to get in his head, right? So that was
nice.
Because we don't really get a lot of
Zephyr.
Yeah. It was cool. I like being in his head.
It was pretty neat.
Yeah, I think he's kind of funny, and I like that he was actually kind of interesting, and he was sitting there at the table when he realizes that Cor is bleeding upstairs, but he's just like, he's whittling not very well, but he's whittling a bird, which I thought was kind of interesting too, like why that's but and he's just sitting there, and then he's like, he has spiders. Oh, the spiders. Oh my god. And then, there's blood dripping down on him. But I want him to have his own book, because to me, he was a lot like Rage. And so, I mean, before he met Mary. And so he needs a female that is going to reject him at first too.
Yeah, I think so too. He might not be used to that, because he is, whoa. What you think of him, Sage?
I like him. I like him too.
I like him too. I like him. I'm gonna tell you that. I could go out with him, but not as much as a sale. damn, that's the first dude that made me turn my head since, well, goodness. So, yeah, so, and that's another kind of singular person in the book, and he had a lot going on with himself. Like, it's funny how they think of him as a kind of like, you know, they almost talk derogatory about Assail. They're always like, oh, Assail is dandy, you know, like all these kind of negative terms for him. But when we meet him and like get his POV and, you know, see who he is as a person, he is so like, you know, breathtaking for me. But also he's very tenacious, he's very decisive, he's very smart. What do y'all think of Assail? And I don't spare no detail, because I felt some things listening to him.
The thing about him is that, you know, he's the son. You disappeared. Your video is gone.
I know, girl. I'm coming back. I made a mistake. I was trying to get rid of the message. Just keep talking. This has been a fun night of video. Technology is amazing.
I mean, you know, we learned, like, which I didn't remember the first time reading this, is that he's the son of a brother, one of the greatest that ever lived. I don't know what that means. We don't know who that is, but it wasn't, we were in Core's head when that was going on. Core,
right,
you know, thought of him, it was just this, you know, his mother ruined him, you know, he should have been a brother, but his mother, you know, a fighter, and his mother ruined him, and he had this thoughts. But then when he really saw him, he realized, oh no, he's much more, you know, conniving and, you know, stronger than I thought. And, you know, he knows his way around a weapon, because he was watching him go through the paces of his guns, you know, from a distance. And which is weird that Core, also, I just have to bring this up because that's interesting, that Core is actually right near where Hex's cabin is too, so it's kind of interesting what's going on. But but yeah, and so Assail is just, you know, he's this tall, muscular, dapper dressing, doesn't really want to be an aristocrat, really doesn't, you know.
No, not at all.
He likes his luxuries and stuff, but he doesn't have much for the, you know, he doesn't really think much of, you know, the Glimera or the council. Especially, you know, one of my favorite scenes of this book, I don't know why it is, but it's just like, you know, they had this, you know, Alon, one of the council members that was calling the meeting with Core and the bastards, and, you know, the ones that wanted to overthrow Wrath, and, you know, he's listening, you know, Assail's listening to this meeting, and then we're in his head, and all this, you know, and Core's like, blah, 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 this is going to happen, and we're going to, you know, working together and all this stuff. And he was like, nope, I don't want any part of this. Fuck this. I'm out of here. And, you know, and brave enough to get up and walk out. And, you know, and Core's like, hey, you're going to be my enemy. He's like, so be it. You know.
Yeah, I think that was kind of.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. And then he gets in his car and he's like racing away, but it's just like, because I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I mean, I felt like that was very indicative of how, you know, they portray him as one thing, and maybe he is a little afraid of them. And who the fuck wouldn't be afraid of, like, all the band of bastards? Because they're kind of menacing, even though Zephyr hides fish grease. But they're menacing, right? So, but to stand there and kind of be like, and then I'm your fucking enemy then, you know? Yeah. What do you think, Sage?
I agree. Well, you know, I love my bad boys, right? And he is right up there with that bad boy. For sure. He's really like, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, I mean, his meeting with Wrath, he was like, listen, you have a problem with me selling drugs? Because
right. Because I'm gonna sell, right?
I just want to sell drugs. And I would like to know, you know, are you gonna be okay with that? And
I'm just gonna do it.
He just wants to do his own thing. He doesn't want to get in, he doesn't want any trouble, he doesn't want to pick sides, he doesn't want to do any of that.
No,
and I like his independence in that way, right? Where he's like, I want to do what I want to do and not be bothered with all this politics bullshit. Like, let me just make my money. Let me just have a good time. And I like that about him.
I do too. I could stay on Assail all night. But we're going to move forward.
On Assail?
Don't tell Rev I said that. But so we're going to move on, because there were two folks, or two sets of people that were pretty prominent in this book. First is John, Matthew, and Hex, because we always love them and we always want what's best for them. But they had some things going on. Like Hex moved out of the mansion very definitively after John kind of made it very, publicly known that he did not want her fighting in the field, despite the fact that she was a fighter when he met him. She had been an assassin before, and she's just not a female that's going to let somebody tell her what to do and dictate what her life choices should be. So let's talk about that whole thing. So John first verbally made it known that he didn't want her fighting, and the other brothers were kind of like, okay, bro, because you can't get in the way of a bonded man. How do we feel about John being
I honestly think his reaction had more to do with seeing what Tor was going through. I think that if that hadn't happened, he wouldn't have been as bad as he was. I mean, yeah, he's going to be protective of his Shellen, and he's, it's all that, but I think that part of his reaction is what was going on with Tor. Honestly,
Well, he showed that, right? He showed that by
because they fought together already.
Right?
He fought together already with her when he helped her stab Lash back to the Omega. It wasn't like he'd never seen her hurt in the field before.
Yeah, I think he was just deluded for a minute. Mm-hmm. I don't know why though. Why do you think that was, Sage?
I think it did have to do with the Tor, because he didn't want to lose her, and he right in front of him he sees his stepfather deteriorating because of the loss of his loved one, of the love of his life. So
self-inflicted, but yes,
self-inflicted, yes. Yes. But he's but he made that point, right? He stomped his foot and was like, I don't want to be like him, and
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was really what he was saying at that point. And I think that is why he reacted that way. But even though that's the reason, I don't think that they handled the situation correctly.
Yeah.
They went a long time apart.
From April to December, right?
Right. Even their booty call stopped. They were a booty call for a little while, and even those stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like she made the wrong decision. To me, as a fighter, I felt like she ran away for a little bit. I mean, yeah, not totally. He came to her office and he said, I'm going to, I'll wait for you forever, whatever. And she's like, okay, we'll work on it. But I still feel like she ran away like a little bitch. Honestly, I mean, I
don't think she had a choice. You don't think?
I think she had a choice. She could have just moved into another room, say, hey, you're not sleeping with me, you're not touching me, until you figure the shit out.
Right, but I don't know if she has the. I don't know if she has the capability. She loved other people before, and she's probably still coming off of those moments where she's fiercely independent and with good reason. So I get why she left. I just wish they would have handled it differently. When John was coming to the club and they were boning, and they almost killed a fake vampire. I forgot about the fake vampire.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. But, and he was about to rip the fake vampire apart. But in that scene was very poignant because, he was noticing things about changes and shifts in their relationships right in that moment. And I kind of felt like that was an opportunity for him to, stop it, this is a chance, when you're being intimate with your Shellen, this is a chance for you to make amends and admit where you went wrong. But at that time, he seemed like, even though he knew this was wrong and this was not what he wanted, he couldn't let go enough to kind of talk about it with her. So let's talk about that moment for a minute. Where were the opportunities for these guys to get back together? Because low key, well, actually high fucking key, they had just gotten married, and immediately, almost after a couple of months, she was out on her own again. So where were the opportunities?
Not even a couple months, it was days.
Yeah, so so where were those opportunities? For me, it was definitely when John, noticed that it was broken and he needed to fix it. I think that was the first chance for them to get back on track. But what were some other moments, guys?
I mean,
well, he did.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say he didn't when he was going to the club, why did he just not sleep at her place? Why weren't they just living there? I mean, he can transfer back and forth. I mean, they legit can be somewhere like that. So I don't understand. And yeah, exactly. Tor used to live on his own, so he didn't necessarily have to live under the king's roof. He just they chose to be apart, and that didn't make sense to me.
Well, yeah, but originally the brothers didn't live together. This was, and so Elsie and Tor had their own house because of that, and I think he also got special dispensation for it anyway. But yeah, I mean, but then you have the complication of Quinn. So what's Quinn supposed to do? He's supposed to move out of the house too?
Quinn would have liked it because he was sick of watching Blay and Saxton be lovey fucking lovey. Quinn would have been like, absolutely, I need to get the fuck out of here.
I think that they should have talked more after the first freak out he had in the field and when they reconciled. I don't think. I mean, yeah, they had sex, but it was like, you know, she's like, oh, you're okay with it? And he's like, yeah, but she should have called him out on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know she's like, I'm too tired. I'm too exhausted to even deal with this right now. You know, she's been stabbed and had surgery. But it's like, that was the opportunity for her to be like, we need to work this out now, you know.
So do we feel good about assigning her all that responsibility?
No, I mean, it was his problem. It was his issue. But she just said, hey, look, would you rather be without me, or would you rather me fight and be with you?
Mm-hmm.
But even after he told her, which didn't make sense to me, was even after that he accepted that she was going to stay a fighter. Mm-hmm. He waited. He was like, "Go ahead, take Layla, see if you can find score, and then." You know, and then, well, you know, later come to me after your assignment's over. You know, like that was what? That's not a bonded meal.
Well, like, I think so in that moment, I think that was the moment where I kind of was like, I get you, John, right now, because he was like, I'm trying to show you something. That's a grand gesture. I will physically restrain myself to allow you to be you, room to be you, have your own agency. I think that was such a act of love, and after so long, like, not being able to get that between those two, I absolutely needed that. Now, on that same vein, would he have like broken that if it had not been for Autumn being in her needing? Would he have like broken that? Because she had some impeccable fucking timing right there. So what do you guys think about that?
You know, I think she had already, I think Hex had already been like, okay, he's really paving the way. This is good. You know, so I don't feel like she was giving in to him just because, like, she was horny or whatever. I think that she genuinely missed him, and I think she realized that they had made great strides, and she, you know, it was a turning point, and, you know, she was already on this assignment, and, you know, it wasn't like he already made the grand gesture. She was making a gesture now in kind, you know, I thought. Because their connection, not that they don't talk or have conversations, and not that they don't know each other very well, but I mean, know each other really well, but it was like their whole connection, like they have a very sexual connection. Like they're you know, he's a mute too, so she gets a lot out of that love connection. Maybe it's her sympath side, whatever. But that means more to her than anything, I think. So.
Yeah, and she was about to kick that fucking door in. Had he been in, like, pity the fool that was in there. What you got, Sage?
Oh yeah, she was gonna kick that door. I love that thought process. She's like, Quinn is a hoe, and they're in there with Layla. I'm sure.
Right.
Awesome.
Oh my God. Poor Layla. I'm so glad she wasn't in there with them. Lord,
because you know Layla would have been all up for it, right?
I do. Well, at that moment, I think Layla. Let's talk about Layla and Quinn for a minute. Ooh, because they were in there getting busy. What the fuck, Quinn? So how do we feel about their hookup? Was it just because she had a shitty night and she needed a win? I feel like that's what it was. That's what it was for me anyway. What do you guys think?
I don't really want to go into this because I have such an opinion about it. So, but I just, you know, I don't know. I kind of felt for both of them. They were both really in almost the same place for different reasons. So, and they both, I think, suffer from self-esteem issues. And so they really were, you know, each other's comfort when they needed it.
So. Yeah, because she had like So she finally meets a guy that she thinks is worthy, which was kind of Fury's fault because he lied to her in the first place. They took away her choices. They allowed that whole, throw entanglement because he was kind of like, I like her a lot. And then, they kind of facilitated that meeting with Core, and she felt so bad about that. So that was a horrible night for her. So I completely get it. Like before, he was like, I'm not gonna bone her because she wants to be my everything, and I don't have it in me. And she understood that by then. So I think that was the reason. What do you think, Sage?
I think that they both have nothing and have no one, right? And that's how they felt. They felt like, I have nothing. They both are in love with people that they cannot be with. And they felt like they had nothing. She said something like, I've been here for a year, and I still don't have nothing. I have no one. And other than her friendship with Quinn, and she, that friendship has developed into like a sibling type relationship, but which is kind of weird now. Which is kind of weird now, right? But I think that the reason why they did it was if she does get pregnant, then they'll both have someone that will love them forever, right? And they'll feel like they belong. And even though they won't be together, they'll still be a unit, and that's something that, and what's funny is that Beth recognized that way before none of the brothers did. When she brought him up to be, she asked why don't they make him a brother. She said, he seems like he just feels like out of place, and like she gave that observation. And I think that's really what it came from. The both of them feeling misplaced,
alone.
I agree, but I think Quinn's problem is his self-esteem because he's in this house full of all these people that have shown nothing but acceptance towards him. Nothing but. And so, I mean, it's so up in his head, and he's such a narcissist that he can't see it. He can't see it.
18 months, though. Like, you can't undo this track.
No, I agree. But
like that's not something.
And I don't think he thinks that they don't care about him. But I don't think it's that he doesn't think that they care about him. But you got to remember when you're in a setting where everybody else is coupled up, because they're all coupled up. Every single one of them, and even Tor and Autumn now, right? So he's like
not Lassiter, you're right?
Not Lassiter, but other than Lassiter, they're all coupled up, and you're always gonna feel that outside looking in. I think, and with all the other things that he was dealing with, and with his family and his own perception of himself, and then his feelings with Blay. And I think that it all wraps around him feeling like he needed a place to belong. And I think the same thing goes for Layla. I think because she's just so needy. She was so needy. She wanted to have that. Like her aspiration was, okay, so now I can be a shelter. Like that's what she wants. She wants a family. And it felt like there was a question about bonding earlier, and I don't remember if it was on this or not. I think it was not. But I think that I think that she grew this attachment to somebody that she can't have, and she feels like all else is gone. So if I have children, at least I'll have something.
Yeah, it's a very immature thing to be like, oh, a kid is gonna make me whole, but we're dealing with two very immature individuals. So I think that's where it came from. But on her side, it's more, I totally agree. She was like, I finally get to have something of my own, because I don't have anything, and I can't have anything because she really thought that finally Core was going to be hers. He was a male of word based on Fury, kind of misleading her that way. And, then she finds out that he's like this horrible person who attempted to assassinate, the king, who she is completely, pledges her fealty to, and she would never do anything to hurt the Brotherhood. So in her mind, she was like, this is my last straw. and I can't do no more. But for Quinn, I think he had already a foreboding what was going to happen. He saw a little girl in the, at a door. And so, I think for him, he was kind of like, even though I run the risk of her living this life, I'm going to do this chivalrous thing. And this is all I'm good for, to do things for other people. You know what I mean? Because he'll never have the life that he truly wants to live, because he's still, hung up on play. So I think it was a lot of things at play that night, but ultimately it boils down to, yes, I think it was such a shitty night. They was like, let's just cling on to this one good thing that we can do. And Quinn is like, I can do that shit really well, better than anyone. So
I agree, but I also think that I don't understand why Layla couldn't talk to Fury about it. Fury is supposed to be helping them, but he has never really does that. He never really says, hey, what's going on with you? How are you doing? We never see him, at least we don't see it on the page, of him saying, okay, hey, talk to the Chosen. Yeah, okay, you're not having sex with them, you're not meeting with all of them, but hey, they're still your mates in some way until they are, until they go off on their own and they have, but why not take some time to talk to all of them? I know there's a lot of them, but there are some that you're closer to that spend more time at the camp or at the mansion. Why wasn't he aware of what was going on with her? Why does he feel not comfortable enough to talk to him? I feel like he's failing in that role. We haven't talked about that.
Honestly, when it comes to Fury and the whole Chosen thing, I do think he's trying to like go out of his way to build relationships with them, because he has a responsibility to, like, he gives them freedom of choice, and he doesn't step on shit on, their aspirations, and he's their protector. But I do believe that Layla has a tendency to withhold information from people, even when they're reaching out to her to help. Like when Cormia did it, she kind of like, just take your ass on. I don't want to talk about it. Second, third time somebody rejected me. I don't want to talk about it. So I don't think Layla is a talky person. Like, she's not, she just goes on her own. Like, she didn't tell anybody that she was leaving to go feed Core at all. She just went, boop, I'm out.
Oh yeah, but I don't understand why she does that. Why does she feel she needs to take on the world herself? Why has she felt that way? Why can't you say, hey, look, I haven't seen where has Layla been? I haven't seen her. I don't think he's building any relationship with them. He's just letting them roll around.
He's not doing
like, why would he think that she wouldn't tell her? Because she's at the mansion. She zapped out of the mansion. And I don't mean
that specific instance, but just in general.
No, I mean like the whole thing. She was waiting for Core for days at the mansion. Like she was like after she fed him the first time, she was so taken with him, she was hanging around. And the statement was,
right, I remember
she's been around a lot. So Fury like, oh, she at the mansion, she good. Maybe she hanging out with one of the Shellens. Maybe she kicking it with, maybe she went over to the sanctuary, and the brothers need feeding. So I won't assign this. You know how I feel about Grand Pride Fury sometimes. I won't assign him that one, because I think Layla was exercising free will, and so far as they knew, she had been making good decisions. So I don't think it's a Fury thing. I think it's a Layla thing.
I think what they could
he also lied to her. So I mean, I find that whole thing disgusting. I just, as a woman, I'm offended.
Well, I think all of them lied to her. They all took part in that. They all took her.
No, I know.
Told her.
And Ralph, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they, they took her agency, and I get why they did it. Kinda, but I just, I don't blame Layla for any of the things that happened subsequently, because in the beginning, you had an opportunity to say, hey, this is not exactly a mail of work. And why couldn't they have a blood bag? Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sage, you go. I know you got some thoughts. A blood bag. That's a whole different series.
It doesn't keep. It gets stale quickly.
Yes,
it has to be right off the tap.
I blame Fury. I blame everybody around her. Why couldn't Quinn was like, hanging out with her a lot. Why couldn't he recognize the shit?
I don't know.
Why does she feel like she has to be? It's this, the way that
they kind of use
the
her
words.
too. Well, hold on. But
Yeah.
they kind of use her too, right? So they know
Right.
that she has this tendency of wanting to take care of.
Who's
And
what?
You're talking about Layla,
No.
right?
Layla they don't know that she's thirsty like she is.
Yeah.
No, they don't know, but she has a tendency of wanting to always take care of. So she's always like, like how there's that one person that's always like, I'll do it. I'll take out the trash. I'll wash the dishes.
But she was also professionally trained as a Euros.
Right. But what I'm saying is,
like she's trained to serve. Like she can do any capacity.
But okay, listen. What I'm saying is, I really feel like all of the Chosen that came down with Fury, they should have been in some sort of program. Like, this is how you transition to life.
What program? So Layla was
Mary should have had a program for that.
No, Layla was in a program. Quinn had been telling her things and she was developing. But what she wasn't doing was being wholly honest with her desire to feel like she belongs based on the satisfaction she derives from other people. It's none of this is about Layla, and she's never learned that part. And she hasn't ever been honest about that yet, honestly. And I don't think she know enough to be honest about it. She don't know what she don't know.
That's why she did the program.
Yes.
Because part of
bless her heart. So we're gonna put a pin in that because we see Layla later on. Let's move on.
Well, no, but I want to make one point though. It's just that the Chosen are trained to not have their own opinions, to not talk about things that are wrong with them, because you're not one person important. It's a collective, and so I think it's sort of it is a layover from that, and it's unfortunate that she didn't learn that early enough, that it's okay to tell people how you feel,
So deviating from the previous point that Fury should have taught her, you believe that it's a holdover from that.
Yeah, but I also think Fury should have said something. I feel like that was his job.
You feel both ways.
No. I know.
To make her better.
I kind of feel both ways about it. I feel like I don't think it's her fault. I think that Fury needed to recognize that because he already knew that about the Chosen.
He did.
So,
but Fury also was doped up for
at this point he's not. So
up until like 16 months ago he was doped up, and so he's dealing with his own demons. He can't fix the world yet. He's still in Narcotics Anonymous, ain't he? At this point, he's still taking his 10 steps, 12 steps. So I can't do it. Fury need help too. Bless his heart. He's not perfect.
Well, then you should ask for help.
Who he gonna ask? Okay, so let's put a pin in it because we have plenty of opportunity to talk about Layla coming up soon. Let's talk about Core with his fine ass and Thro. How do we feel about Thro? Even though he was obviously in the bloodlust, how we feel about him stabbing Thro and leaving him in a dark alley alone, defenseless, with lessers all around them, just for the Brotherhood.
Okay, I get that, but we do learn that Core never left him alone. He stayed on the rooftop to watch.
I'd say that.
And he would have intervened if they had the lessers that had come up upon him were going to tear him apart. He would have intervened. And so I think that it was just, he immediately, as soon as he stabbed him, he immediately felt guilty about it. He's like, this was my trainer, this is, how could I do this to this male who at first nobody liked, and then he proved his worth as a fighter, and this is this is what I do to him. And he felt awful, and even like the rest of the bastards were like, how could he do that? That was just horrible, and they had fealty to Core, so they just, they left, but they were so pissed at him for this until they learned that he felt bad. He was cutting himself and stuff. And so
I honestly, okay, I'm gonna let Sage go because I'll come back to mine because
So
gonna be a minute.
So I think that he thinks he's more of a monster than he really is, right?
Right.
And so he thinks that he is every bit of the monster that the bloodletter was, because that's what he always inspired to be. He wanted to be like his so-called father. And that's why he did that, because after he did it, he was like, that's what the bloodletter would do. That's what I'm going to do. And then after he did it, he's like, I'm not the bloodletter, yo. Like, this is like, he immediately, he regretted it. And I think it's because he was living up to the expectation that he expected himself to be, right? This monster that his father was. So,
What he thought
I think
of
that's why.
he didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So mine is a little different because I feel like, okay, so I know that he was starved, and you know from Tor that I give people the benefit, because when I'm hangry, I am a monster. But so I feel like that's the whole reason that he did it. But I also can't give him a pass for leaving his best friend laying in the alley. I know he wasn't far away, and he could have helped him, but it was a dick move for him to do that. Just like Tor, even though he was hungry, it was a dick move for him too. And I do believe that I didn't forgive Core until he was sitting there cutting himself, knowing that he had an incapacity to heal because he hadn't fed properly. And when he gave Throw back his sister's ashes, like that was to me like a great grand gesture to show that he loves him. But I do feel like Core has a tendency to be a dick, because he treated Throw like an ass the entire time. Like, there's multiple instances where he'll be like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't want to get phones. We live the way I say we live. And I think in a lot of ways he has a lot in common with Tor. And so I'm not giving him a pass for stabbing his best friend leaving in the alley. I just can't do it. I know he was hungry.
I wasn't giving him a pass. I was saying he did it because he thinks that's what he's supposed to do. That's what the bloodletter said. I think he has a problem with change, and he has a problem with accepting the new world and the new ways. And he thought that I'm gonna do what I think is right. You normally, we would discipline your ass for talking to me this way. I'm gonna discipline your ass. But I think once he did it, he regretted it. Not that it's a pass in any way, but I think that's what it was.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm not the bloodletter. What am I doing? I am not this person. Just the same way he won't, he doesn't, he won't force himself upon a female, even though like the bloodletter would do that. He just is like, it's not me. It's not who I am. And I think he's starting to realize who he really is a person, where he didn't know, because he always thought, okay, I'm a bloodletter's son. Well, when he found out how many months earlier, no, that's not true. He was reevaluating, even at that point, reevaluating who he really was. He didn't know who he was at that point, and so I think he was trying to come to terms with that. It's sort of a transformation he made. Apart from them, trying to take Wrath out or whatever. I mean, let's ignore that fact for a minute. But it's like he just was, he was overcoming what he thought he was, and he was just trying to, he's becoming his own person and realizing what bothers him and what doesn't, and and trying to do better for some reason, for whatever reason, he was trying to do better. So
I just, because Throw is so like devoted to him, I do feel a way about it. The same way I feel a way about Core. Throw obviously having feelings for Layla, right? He was like, this is the best thing I ever seen. And my whole ass, like, and he was describing her to the Band of Bastards like, dog, when you see my girl, and he was like, and I have this female of worth that I can introduce to Core, save his life, and he can see, like, I am really good with the ladies, and like, I felt like he had this whole, like, this my girl thing happening in his head, and you could hear him thinking these things. Right. And then Core, even after he apologized, and he obviously knew that Throw was digging on Layla, he still was like, this this could be for me. You know,
Well,
like,
you know, I
how
honestly
fair
think
was that?
I almost think it was sort of a bonding thing, you know, with Tor, or with Core, because he's just like, it don't matter. I could do, because he even makes this kind of like his own inner thought of like, I would do anything for this woman. I would do anything for this female, like absolutely anything. If I were to change, it would be because of her, you know. So I feel like that was kind of like the beginning of, you know, a bonding. He's trying to do better. It's not even.
I get it, but that's her. That's like his man's girl, kind of.
But
like,
he doesn't care, you know. You know how bonding male works.
He don't give a shit what you got, Sage, because he don't care.
He doesn't care. He's like, whatever. He can't have her, and technically, I can't either. But if I get the chance, I'm taking it.
Yeah, because he's protective of her. And, you know, that's the thing that Thro didn't do. He didn't protect her. He summoned her. And, you know, I mean, there's a difference there. Core felt guilty about it. He took the blood because it was there. He couldn't help it because she was dripping it over his mouth or whatever. But he felt badly about it. And he felt guilty. And then Thro was just like, the fact that he summoned her at all was not protecting her, and I think that
you don't think it was because he's so loyal to Core, he would do anything for Core?
No, I don't. I don't. I think he wanted to see her, and that was his excuse.
I think Core was dying because he was dying. He wasn't healing, and what other woman? The human blood was not going to do it.
I don't
he was
trust
dying.
Him. I do not trust this man.
I know you don't trust Thro, but I think the events in this book lead to Thro becoming a different individual. The betrayals that he suffered, the injustices that were committed against him by not only the Brotherhood, as they should, because they were enemies, but his own brothers, the band of bastards, betrayed him in his mind again and again. What you got, Sage?
I was going to say, I agree, because, like, okay, how many years have they been fighting since the Bloodletter died? Right. Yeah. And you've had his sister's remains all this time. You've had his sister's remains all this time. So you're telling me you kept her, like, we're looking at Wellesley not going to the fade in, like, a year. And she was going to fade off.
And we know
did his sister ever make the fade? Did she, like, disappear? And you know what I mean? Like, why would you do that?
Other people up there. It's other people that are up there with Wellesley. Remember, he was like, they're not
right. So could Tor's sister be one of them? Right. Mm-hmm. So she could have been one of them.
You can't assume that she didn't go into the fade. You know what I mean? That doesn't. They do the fade ceremony, but that doesn't actually mean that they're not going to the fade.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know. You held the remains, but Core held her remains for like how many years? Like how many years?
But they never did a fade ceremony for Darius, and he went to the fade. So it's not.
But we're not. Ceremony
does not. It does not mean.
It's not. But that's not the point. The point is we don't know.
It's not to state that they do not, that she did go or she didn't go.
Yeah.
The point of the matter is Core held on to her remains.
Right.
Regardless of how Thro. These were not isolated instances that Core was treating Thro like shit. Like he was treating them like shit the whole time. Like they was calling him names. Like they were talking about him like they were talking about a sale. And I'm like, that's fucked up. That's supposed to be your brother, right? Like that. I feel like whatever Thro becomes, he has earned the right to be that because they were so shitty to him. How long can I suffer this injustice before I just become the monster you see me as?
I didn't think of it that way before, but until you said that, it really just all clicked into place. It makes sense that he turns into what he turns into later because of the actions.
Okay,
because
you're making a spoiler. You're talking spoiler.
Sorry, no spoilers. But like I can see what you're saying. It didn't click to me, like for me like that until you said that.
Yeah, I mean, he
Like it's
definitely
like
praised him, you know, and at least he did give him the ashes, but yeah, it was.
300 years later.
I know.
like I love Core, I do, because I think that Core, and that's actually leading us to the last question of the night. Tor and Core have a lot in common. Like they're both very loyal, and they always want what's best for their men. Well, with the exception of Throw. And sometimes through their own stubbornness, they, push away the ones that love them the most. We saw that with Tor doing that to John. And then we see Core doing it with Throw. Like the ones who care about them the most, they have a tendency to boot them out of their lives and push them around and kind of take for granted that you'll be there when I get back, when I'm done running around, when I'm done getting what I need from me, you'll be there. So let's talk about that for a minute. What are some other similarities between Core and Thor, besides their name rhyming?
I don't know. Yeah, they're both abrasive, right? They're both.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like the thought process here comes right out of here. I don't know.
I got some differences too, because like when Thor was starving, he Thor, Lord have mercy, I called him Thor. Thor. So when Thor was starving, he like bit into Autumn, and when Core was starving, he like lightly struck at her wrist. It was very light and compassionate. So that is a difference, but otherwise. So what you got, AJ?
Well, that's what I'm saying about the bondedness. Yeah, I understand. That's what I'm saying. It's
Look at her face. Look at her face.
He wanted to protect her. He didn't want to hurt her. She was this very sensitive, delicate flower, But so was Autumn. So why he did. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I
Interesting.
Just saying.
I mean, Thor. Why am I thinking about Thor? God damn it. Well, that is my last question of the night. But before we get into closing thoughts, I do want to give a big old shout out to one of our dear friends in one of the Black Dagger Brotherhood fandoms. It's the Black Dagger Brotherhood Avenge group. Wrath Avenge, King Wrath, was so gracious in giving us some feedback on our videos, and he's watching. So I think that was pretty cool. So thank you for doing that. If you're watching again, he really appreciated our sexual healing title last week. So thank you for watching. We appreciate all viewers. So any closing thoughts on Lover Reborn before we wrap up for the night?
I don't know. I feel like Lover Reborn was about 3 people. Autumn, Thor, and Lassiter. I don't think it was just one person it was about. They all were reborn in a sense.
Yeah, true. I hadn't thought about that. Lassiter was such a important factor in their relationship, and it was really nice to see him in this book strutting this stuff finally.
And he's so serious in this book, like where he was normally he's a goofball, and he's being, the way he dresses, and yeah, I just picture him with flip flops and a tutu for some reason. I don't know.
Well, he bled for Tor. That was pretty awesome.
I know. I love what he did. I mean, his ultimate sacrifice was pretty sweet. So it
was pretty awesome. So love Lassiter. What you got, Steve? What's your closing?
And I want Zephyr to have a book.
True
that. What you got,
Sage? I agree. I can't wait for his book. He is. I just every time he pops up on the page, he lights it up, right? He's so I don't know, just entertaining, right? It's just like I just really love when he's on the page. His sacrifice twice. Once for Tor, once for Autumn. The Tor obviously because he took the bullets, and Autumn because he traded his soul. So he just showed a side of him that you don't really, because like when we first meet him, they're like, oh, he started the plague, he did this, he did that. So we, he's a fallen angel, right? So you're like, well, what did he do? that he
Right.
that he felt bad, and then you see this goodness with him and how serious he took Tor and Autumn and
Oh, yeah.
Velvies. Yeah, like he really made it his mission to make sure that they survive, right? So it's truly cool. He's just a really
he had a transformation. He realized he was a compassionate, angel.
Yeah.
Didn't know before.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah, we love Lassiter. I really, really, really can't wait to see his story kind of unfold a bit more, because it's a couple things that he won't touch, like, whatever happened to his mate that he had, and, what happened between him and Vicious, because we need to know that. So it's lots of stuff like hanging out there. But I do want to point out that we did have a preview of The Jackal in the back of a book that I just ordered. And which one was it? It was
Prisoner of Night.
Prisoner of Night. So Prisoner of Night is out in print. And I just got my copy on Sunday, and immediately I read the first chapter. So I'm not going to talk about it because we're not allowed to talk beyond the book that we're on, but it was really, really good. So if you haven't seen that, make sure that you do it. Next week, we have Lover at Last.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, I read the hell out of that real fast. But next week is Lover at Last with Blair and Quinn, because how fucking sweet was it that they held their gaze over Saxton's shoulder. I felt bad for Saxton, but I did not feel bad for Quinn and Blair. So we're going to get into that next week. I can't wait. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and do ask any questions. We do love feedback, and we do mention folks on our podcast. So thanks, you guys, for joining us. We'll see you again really, really soon.
Bye.
Bye.